Are you ready?
I was born ready.
5, 4, 3.
Welcome to Recovery Uncovered, brought to you by Whiskey and Milk. I'm Adam Clarke.
I'm Sarah Sellers.
As recovering addicts, we're on a mission to fight the stigma against addiction.
And inspire those struggling by sharing the experience of real people in recovery.
Because addiction doesn't discriminate.
Behind every struggle, there's a person with a story.
This is Recovery Uncovered.
Attention, now arriving at your destination. The last house on the block.
Welcome, everyone, to episode 2 of Recovery Uncovered.
Yeah, we're joined today by Michael and Madison Graham, two close friends of Sarah and I's, and they're going to share a little bit about their experience, strength, and hope with us.
I'm really excited. I'm really excited y'all came on today. Yeah. It's really nice to have a couple in recovery, and there's a lot that we do want to ask you guys about your experience, your own personal experiences, but also what it's like now being actively in recovery in a relationship with a little at home. A little Graham. So, Adam, you want to kick it off and interrogate them?
Yeah, I hope you guys are ready. No, so first I just wanted to start, I guess we'll just go like one at a time. But Madison, when did you get sober?
I got sober. Okay, so I got sober in August of 2018, but my DOC was Xanax. So I'm not sure if it's the 4th of August or the 6th. So
what do you go by?
The 6th, just in case.
Yeah.
So you might have 2 more days than you think.
Yeah.
Rowdy.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Rowdy.
Nice.
Yeah.
What about you, Michael?
My sobriety date is September the 10th, 2022.
So coming right up on a year there.
I got two days left.
Come on now.
Ooh.
Yeah.
We could record for 48 hours and watch you
Let's
get
go.
a year.
Marathon.
Get a year
Yeah.
live.
We would have no friends left on Facebook.
No,
Right.
my work will be upset at me, but it's fine.
Yeah, right.
It's God's will.
Right.
That's right.
So what was it like before getting sober? And this is going to be a question for both of you, but just kind of, and you don't have to go too far into detail, but when did you start? Why did you start? Why would you do something like that
Right.
to you and your family?
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'll go. I think I had my first drink when I was like 14 or 15. The first time I got drunk, I was, after a while, vomiting violently in some dude's bathroom. His mom had to like roll me out of her car into my yard.
Wait, this
at
is
like
your
3
first
o'clock in the
time?
morning. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it wasn't just me and the dude. It was like me and some friends.
that
but
makes it better.
a little better. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think I had Natty Light and had like, one too many or something.
Yeah.
And it was just off to the races. I loved it.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was I made it my whole personality,
Yeah. Was that what you were thinking that night and when you woke up from that night? Like, this is the best thing ever? Or did you feel at all like...
Is there any moment of remorse like that next morning?
No. I was ready for the next night out.
Yeah, I relate to
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
I was right back to it.
I was ready. I was scared like rolling out of that lady's car.
Yeah.
Or into
Yeah.
my yard. I was like, I know my mom's going to get me. But she
Yeah.
didn't. I made it in safe and sound somehow and kept it rolling.
So no consequences that first time.
No. It was probably 10 years until I started having consequences, like real consequences.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, what would you say is a real consequence?
Failing out of Ole Miss, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was like one of the first. I got like a buckshot twice. So that's like a 0.0 GPA
Oh.
2 times.
I didn't know what a
Gang,
buckshot-
gang.
Yeah.
You're doing all right. I did
Yeah.
it 4 times, so,
Yeah. Yeah, twice. So that wasn't quite 10 years. But,
Right.
It was a long time. And, my parents were like, this is unacceptable. And it, like, really loudly
Yeah. Yeah.
He didn't whisper it to you.
It was like a really big deal, and I was like, dang.
Yeah.
I remember the like the president of the student body or whatever at Ole Miss at the time had me come in for a meeting in his office, and he was like, "Have you ever thought that maybe college isn't for you?"
Oh.
Damn.
Yeah.
So he was saying you're not good here. He wasn't saying, how can I help?
No.
Oh.
Yeah.
Or insinuating that you had a problem or anything like that.
No, he was like, "You should go."
Wow.
So what was it like after that first night where you started drinking? What did your progression look like as you moved on to more regular use, other substances?
So it was pretty slow. I think I stuck with drinking for a long time. And it was, whenever I could get my hands on it, which wasn't very often. I was like barely driving and wasn't like friends with older people or,
Right.
I wasn't really hanging out with people who were getting messed up all the time.
Yeah.
I'd say it got a lot worse probably when I left for school, for college,
Yeah.
when it was, everywhere, more available.
Yeah.
Um,
Would you say that you were telling people around you, this is what I want to do, I'm not going to stop, all I care about is drinking, doing drugs? Like, did you voice that out, or did you claim that it wasn't really what you wanted?
yeah, so I denied that I had a problem until I got out of treatment.
Okay.
And I would never like, what was your question again?
Like, if you were, and I think about this for myself because I do think I was pretty secretive about it. Like, I didn't tell people outright, I want to be a druggie. I want to I want to be messed up all the time and never sober.
Yeah. So I think I was in denial myself about it. Like, I just thought I would have this really fun, cool party life.
Yeah.
And, it would never become a problem.
Yeah.
Yeah, I relate to that. Like, that's all I wanted to do was party, but I didn't think like all I want to do is get drunk all the time and I just wanted to be at the party.
Yeah, I wanted to have fun.
Yeah.
And that's what I thought I was doing for a long time. Like, when I look back at it now, even at the start, it was a shit show from the jump.
Yeah.
Like immediate, which I didn't start till I was 18, but like immediate consequences, immediate failing out of school, trouble with the law, like one thing after another. But I just would tell myself like, oh, I'm young. It's what everybody else is doing. And that excuse worked real good till I was like 23 and like all my friends had graduated college and then they were getting engaged and then they started popping out babies. And I was like, I'm over here at the bar.
Right.
Gang.
Why is life so hard to me? Why can't I have what all these other people have?
If only I had their parents, if my parents hadn't divorced, if et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. That's my story. Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
And I think about what parents, because we're getting older. You guys have a kid. I'm not trying to put him in this. I'm just saying, like, parents now, what do you look for when you're suspicious of your child having traits of an addict or an alcoholic? And I don't think, I think you really have to sit down. You would have really had to sit down with me and get to know me and get to know what I'm excited about instead, because I'm not going to come out right and say, all I want to do is drink with my life. That's all I want.
You would have had to bug my car to get that information out of me.
Right.
There's no way.
Yeah.
Right.
I wasn't saying it to myself either.
Same.
Yeah.
It
I was
took me
feeling
a long
it,
time
though.
to get to that point.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there was a period where like I knew that there was an issue. Like I definitely knew that the painkillers were a problem, but it was the same story for me. Like I was in rehab when I realized like, oh, I can't drink or smoke weed or do anything like normal people. Like it's as soon as I start, it's a shit show. Even if I don't like rob my grandma when I'm smoking weed, like I just become a blob melted into a couch. And my life goes nowhere and I just waste away. And I had to have other alcoholics and addicts point that out to me. Like, well, tell me what it was like when you first started before the painkillers. And I was like, oh, I failed out of school 4 times. And they're like, normal people don't do that.
Right.
Like,
that was shocking to me.
Yeah. Michael, what about you?
Oh, just like where it started?
Answer every single question
In
that I
order.
just asked
Oh, yeah,
Madison.
no problem. I was tracking, so. No, Similar story. I was probably about 14. First time I got drunk, didn't care for it too much. I was probably about like 12 or 13 the first time I got drunk. But the first time I realized that I was different was I was 14 and we were at a bonfire and some friends got like a case of beer and a joint. And we finished the case of beer, smoked the joint, everybody went to bed, and I was sitting there at the fire by myself like, we need more of this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, like, and that feeling never went away. Like
Yes.
that fire was started and didn't go out for 15 years.
Yeah.
So, and then, yeah, similar to her. I mean, I didn't have consequences until, I did. And, then my story took a pretty hard turn when it took one. I got arrested like 8 times in 12 months. And, that was the first time I realized like normal people don't keep getting, it wasn't the cops' fault. It wasn't the roadblocks' fault or whatever the situation was, maybe it was me and, went to treatment. But like we hear in the rooms, I wasn't done. I was caught, but I wasn't finished. And, it wasn't until I was that, I finally admitted to myself that if you want a different life, you got to do different things.
Yeah.
And, as far as that question you asked about early on, like, how do you know if a child, like, I don't say I was an addict as a kid, but, like, I would come up with these fabulous stories, like I would go to school and tell my teachers, hey, we were robbed last night. Like somebody broke into our house and stole a bunch of stuff, and like that didn't happen. And, but I was like, wanting attention or wanted to be, I don't know what it was.
Yeah.
But normal kids didn't do that. Like I said, they say it, it starts at a young age, but, I don't know if that had anything to do with it. But I do know that I was probably the only one that went to school and, faked a robbery at home in the 2nd grade.
Right.
Yeah. So
I
Yeah,
did something similar to that. I
see that.
I had a unibrow as a kid, and I went home and got my dad's razor, and I accidentally shaved off half my eyebrow. In elementary school, maybe I don't know what age, but I went to school. My mom tried her best to put some makeup on me, and the teacher asked, what happened to your eyebrow? And I freaked out, and I said, me and my brother got in a knife fight, and I ran away, and they called my parents to the school, and we're like, what is this claim that she's making, that her brother cut her in the face with a knife?
Wow.
But yeah, it's like, I don't, and I think about me being uncomfortable when he asked me. It's like the next right action for me, if I'm not recovered, is lie and run away.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I got like very practiced at lying from a very young age.
Yes.
And unfortunately, that made me really good at it by the time I was actually getting in some consequences. And I would spin stories, and I was talking to somebody about this the other night. Like, I would just talk and explain and keep going until either you believed me or you were so damn tired of listening to me that you would just agree to it.
Yeah.
Like, I would never admit guilt. I would never accept fault. I would never tell you that, oh, you caught me, I was lying. Like, there would be another story come up. I would spin it somehow.
Yes.
Yes.
I had this really good friend, and we would always hang out and kind of do the same things, but I would do that. I'd be explaining something to him, and I would really go into this big long story, and he'd be like, dude, you can just, you don't have to explain yourself. Just answer yes or no. And I was like, yes, I do. I have to tell you these other 3 stories because you asked why I was 10 minutes late.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right.
Like, you need to hear this whole spiel. Yeah.
I think some of that, for me at least, like, stems from always feeling different, always feeling less than, like, even as a young kid. And so, like, I thought if I told you this grand story, or even, like, when I was telling sort of the truth about something, like, I would always embellish, add on, if I got arrested by 2 cops, no, there were 7 of them, like, or, whatever it was, like, I wanted you to think better of me, or think I was cooler or more badass or whatever I was trying to be.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, we talked a little bit last episode about moments of clarity and like all those times that we could have taken a different action. And how rock bottom, people use that term a lot, but for y'all, what was your final moment for both of you with the time that you have now?
Michael, you can go first. I have to think about it for a second.
Oh, okay, yeah, mine's fresh. 11 months and 28 days ago, I was in a hotel room in Jackson, Mississippi, and I was again not done. If it were up to me, I would have kept going, but God intervened in my life, and this one came into the hotel room with a positive pregnancy test, and never have I felt a overwhelming moment of clarity. I've had moments in the past, but for the past 2.5 years, I had been, before that moment, had been kind of trying to get sober, like pretty seriously. But as we know, when the allergy kicks in, if you allow it to kick in again, it's really hard to stop it. That's what had happened. So, I was really crying for help, and the help showed up, and I mean that was that. She for the third time in 2 weeks, I think, took me to treatment from the hotel room, and yeah.
I don't know this story. You showed up at the hotel room?
Yeah.
Yeah.
How'd you know?
Well, he had his location on.
Oh,
Yeah.
of course.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, I was suicidal. I wanted people to find me
Yeah.
if something happened.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So what was that like for you, Madison?
It was really hard. It was like constant suspense and like a very difficult thing to kind of let go of and let happen.
Yeah.
It was like constant, let go and let God. But I was in contact with. I had support, and some of the guys at Linwood House were in contact with me, kind of helping me help Michael, because he would run off and do these things, but he would keep in touch with me, and he made it known that he wanted me to know where he was, and that I don't think he was, I don't know. I think he wanted help.
Why did you make it known to her?
Like I said, I mean, I was genuinely, I won't say any action was ever planned, but I was suicidal, and I knew that I wanted to live, so I was kind of the whole time crying for help. I wanted, and she was doing everything she could, and her and a whole group of people were doing everything they could to help me. But, like I said, that, the physical rock bottom hadn't kicked in yet, so I was still running and gunning there for a minute. So that was it. But I wanted, that's where I met you guys, was in one of the earlier, the times before that, before this past year. I mean, 6 months or 5 months and 25 days was the most I'd ever put together. And that time was the best time I'd ever had in my life, and I wanted that back. So I stayed in contact with somebody I thought, could help me get back there.
Yeah.
Yeah, they say getting into recovery, sobriety, it'll ruin your drinking when you go back, because you got all that knowledge and you got that memory of like what it was like when your shit was together, and like life was good, and you could lay down and go to sleep at night instead of passing out. And I know I relate to what you were kind of saying with like crying out for help without crying out for help. When I look back at like the last several months of my drinking and using, I got sloppy, but like it wasn't that I didn't know like how to cover my tracks anymore, but it's like I just didn't care. Like I was at the point where like I wasn't quite yet willing to be like, I need help, but I wasn't really going to be that upset if you caught me.
Yeah.
Because like that was easier at the time. It was easier for me to get caught, and then like I'm backed into a corner now, I have to be honest, than for me to just come forward and be honest on my own.
Yeah, that manipulation was programmed in at that point.
Yeah. You're just running on the same thing that you've been doing for however long, or at least I was. Like I didn't know how to be honest about really much of anything up until getting sober, and then still struggled with that for, I don't remember how long, but like, I mean, still to this day, sometimes like if somebody asks me an uncomfortable question, that first instinct can be like, lie.
Yeah.
Don't tell them the truth.
Yeah.
Like, or if I'm going to face some sort of consequences, to come up with some bullshit real quick.
Yeah.
But the cool thing about recovery is like I don't have to act on that first instinct anymore.
Right.
Before it was just like snap fire effect, like the lie was coming out of my mouth before I even had any thought about it. And now I can pause and be like, yeah, don't do that. Like own up to it, take your consequences, deal with whatever the reaction is to the situation. Because I've learned that that's way easier in the long run.
Right. The consequences that we're so scared of are not bad.
Yeah.
They're never as bad as I think they're going to be.
No.
No, it's always fine.
Yeah, and experience has taught me like God's going to get me through whatever they are in sobriety as long as I'm doing the right thing.
Yeah.
But I can still have that moment of doubt where I'm like, I don't know, he got me through the last 347 situations that I screwed up, but 348, and that's the one he's going to leave me on.
Yeah.
Like, okay, Adam,
Yeah.
get your head out of your ass.
It's that ego stepping in and making you more important. And, you know, that for me anyways, that's what I see when I feel doubt.
Yeah.
Like that's me trying to take control of the situation, and that's why I'm doubtful, because I know I'm powerless over these situations. You know?
Yeah.
Absolutely. I like to still think that like, oh, I got this. I did this. I'm the reason that my life's this way. Like, no, we have 25 years before sobriety of clear examples that Adam cannot run his own life successfully. That Adam will run it into the ground, matter of fact, over and over and over again. But still that pops up in different areas of my life.
Yeah. I really would like if y'all could go back to when you first met, how much time you had, and then how this kind of came about. Because there's a lot more to before the hotel scene you just gave us a depiction of. So, yeah, if you'll just run with that, I'd like to hear it from y'all.
Started with building a fence, yeah?
Right.
Yeah,
so,
there was okay.
Yeah, there was this group called Missy Paul. I don't know if you've mentioned that on here. But, yeah, it's a group for young alcoholics to get together and realize there's more young alcoholics out there. And that's where we met, was in that group. By somebody that you formerly knew, introduced me to Missy Paul. And couldn't go without mentioning that. But, yeah, so walked in one day. We're in this meeting. There's this really strong-armed guy running the meeting, and there's this girl in the corner being really sassy to him. And she caught my attention, and that was this one here. And then I had, over the years, through running through 1,000 jobs, kind of know how to do a lot of things. And she texted in a group one day and asked how I need to help building a fence. And I was like, I know how to build fences. I'm sure she just like needs a little dog fence or something, or like, closing a gate. No big deal. I'll get there. I get to her house. There's 3 horses and a pasture.
How many acres?
And 5 acres. We're putting a fence. We're cutting it. We're cutting it in half to separate the horses, because there's the biggest, strongest horse is kind of aggressive towards the oldest one, and aggressive towards new people, which I was. And so we had to, my first real time spent alone or together with her was fending off, 1,200 pounds of, angry horse. And we got it done. And it was, I don't know what to call it, but the cooperation, the communication was really easy and fun. And we had another friend there. She's Julia. And she pointed out, she said, "You guys are adorable." And then we were like, "Are we?"
Yeah. Thanks, Julia.
Yeah. And
Shout out Julia.
yeah. And then after that, I mean, I don't know, dinner, blah, blah, blah. We were
Chicken spaghetti.
chicken spaghetti.
Yeah, you made the chicken spaghetti. I remember that.
That's how I knew she.
I was
She
like,
Yeah.
all right, so he's, interested. I'm going to cook.
Yeah.
And I brought this huge pan of chicken spaghetti to the next Missy Paul meeting.
I remember that.
And everybody wanted some, and I was like, no.
It's for him.
This is for Michael. I'm trying to secure a husband.
Yeah.
Back up.
yeah. It was really good.
Yeah, when she like cooks a whole casserole for you, like that, you meant business.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what was your relationship like, both being in recovery, leading up to the hotel?
I mean, it was.
Like before, Michael, you had your relapse, and so what was that?
It was kind of off and on.
Why?
I mean, I was on.
So, given
ready.
some backstory to that, I was living in a sober living house, and I had
At the time.
I was living in a sober living
Okay.
house, and it wasn't a rule of sober living to not have a girlfriend, but it was frowned upon, and it was suggested not to in the first 12 months of recovery. Emotions get high, and just it's safer not to.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
as bad as I wanted to, and as on as she was, I kept taking suggestions because they had gotten me that far.
Yeah.
They were suggesting I not do it, so I would, once a month go to it and be like, I don't know.
Because at that time, like, relapse wasn't on your mind. Like, you were trying to do the damn thing and really giving it everything. Yeah.
Yeah. When we first met, I mean, I was doing they say do 90 meetings in 90 days, and I did. I think it was like 146 in 90 days. So
Right.
I was all in.
Remember
I
this,
was
yeah.
committed. So
Yeah.
it was. Relapse was in the rearview mirror as far as I could tell.
Yeah. They say, don't get in a relationship within a year. It's suggestion. And I mean, personally, I waited 3 just because that's where I was at. Like, I was scared to be in a relationship, but I do believe now it's not that you're going to relapse if you get in a relationship. It's just that it's harder. You kind of have to choose your hard in that scenario when you found someone you do want to be in a relationship with and you don't have much time. It's like, I can date this person, but it's going to be difficult. I'm going to have to learn and really fight to put recovery first. And then there's putting recovery first is easier, but I'm also fighting to not be with this person I want to be with. Yeah. So what were those conversations like for y'all, making a decision to do it and then not to do it? Where were your heads at?
So, I mean, the plan was just to we both, I think, knew that we were into each other, but the plan was just to stay friends and learn about each other and hang out and spend time or whatever and take it really slow. And that was kind of the advice of
everyone.
Yeah. Literally everyone. And we did great for a minute.
So when did you start kind of leaning towards a relapse? When did you start to have those thoughts or those behaviors?
Yeah, walk us through what led up to it,
Yeah,
the
sure.
feelings and stuff.
So what it was is, as much as AA is part of my recovery, mental health therapy, medication, things like that is something that I thoroughly believe in now. And those are the things that I had never had anything to do with before in my life. So I was all into recovery, 100%, doing step work and meetings and sponsoring guys. I was doing those things, but I was ignoring some underlying issues I may have had, some outside issues that I had never addressed or had too much pride to admit to. So there was some serious depression that was kind of building up. And then we went on a canoe trip to the Okatoma.
Yep.
Yeah. And it was that kind of, I don't know why that made me sad, but it was like such a high when we were there. It was fun and we were having the best time, and it was just like that. And then when we got back, it was such a low, and it was like I wanted, I wasn't mentally in the middle where you have to be. I was still doing this,
ups and downs.
Yeah. And instead of probably just being honest with the people around me like I should have been, I kind of isolated myself, including with her. I was like, hey, I don't think this is going to work out. But in the back of my head, at some point in that low, that switch flipped. And I thoroughly believe too that nobody else can put drugs or alcohol in your body. Like, I made the conscious decision, hey, I want to do this. I want to change the way I feel. I'm fixing to go get high. And so, I mean, that's what happened. I didn't reach out. I did reach out, but I didn't take the advice eventually, So, yeah, and then the next 2 or 3 months, I didn't tell anybody. I was doing something. I don't want to turn this to a PSA. I don't know anything talking about's off limits.
It's not.
But
Yeah.
If it's not for you.
no, yeah, it's not for me. So I was doing kratom, from the gas stations, which is very addictive, very bad stuff. It's your receptors in your brain react to it the same way it does opiates. So, and that's what I was doing, and the type of drug that is, just by design is kind of easy to hide, unfortunately. So I did for the next few months, and that is what ripped me apart, because I was still active around sober people, in a relapse.
Yeah.
So, and then,
Did you go to meetings consistently during this time? As consistently as you did? Did you fellowship?
Yeah, I went from 7 a week to 2.
Okay.
I was still showing up every once in a while, but it was very, very, it was a lot different.
Do you think people noticed?
I'm sure, I don't know. It was one of those things where I didn't really, kind of like he was saying earlier, I was hiding it. I was trying to hide it, but I wouldn't have been upset if somebody would have found out. That would have been fine.
Yeah.
That would have almost been like a saving grace if somebody would have brought it up.
Yeah.
And we went to Missy Paul. Actually, I was still on the committee performing commitments. And it was at Missy Paul. We do, there's a thing there where, like the sobriety countdown, everybody stands up for their time. Mm-hmm. And I didn't stand up because I didn't want to lie. I wasn't sober, and,
you didn't go to the bathroom or
You left the
something?
building.
Okay, so you did.
I left the building.
Yeah, I definitely would have left the building.
I was about to say, no
went
way
to
you just
Wendy's.
sat there.
Yeah, I was like, I'm really hungry. And she's like, they're about to do the sobriety countdown. I was like, I'm so hungry.
Yeah, I probably would have left the state, honestly.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
My
Where'd you
mom
go,
was like,
Mike? I'm
"Where's
in Florida.
Michael?"
So
Wow.
they did the sobriety countdown. A friend of ours, Murphy, stood up with 4 days, and he was somebody that we thought had I thought had a lot more time than that then. And I was like, wow. And then everybody embraced him and loved him. And that was just like that was the breaking point for me when I realized, like, man, like, I'm not going to get, like, shunned if I come clean and be honest with these people.
Yeah.
That love me for anyways.
Shout out Murphy.
Yeah, shout out Murphy.
Thank you.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, and that's what broke the final straw. So, and then a couple days later, I think I told my sponsor, told Madison, and then started the back and forth because, like I said, the allergy had kicked in, the obsession was there, and
Yeah.
I had to do some serious separating.
Yeah.
And
Well, that's a lot of layers that you created. And I don't have that experience yet. Of like, there's no wood in here to knock, but you need to build some of that too. Okay, Danny. But I do have friends like you and others that have been relapsing, still coming to the meetings, keeping their agenda. Like everything in their daily lives is the same, except at night they get high,
Yeah.
And it's so baffling, that we can do that. We can do that and get away with it for a while, like not a long time, but there's so many layers that you created. There's lying to friends, lying to people in the rooms that you know. Then once that's gone, there's still more for you to do. And so this was 3 months.
Yeah.
Wow.
It was 3 months. It was, like I said, I was kind of, as bad as it was and as much lying and manipulation as I was doing, I still wanted to, I was excited about Missy Paul still.
Yeah, it's like you're trying to
Yeah.
cling to the good that's left in your life, even though you got this darkness going on the other side here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of the questions you asked a second ago is like, could people tell? And like, I was in meetings with him, during that time, and like, I didn't notice. I didn't realize. Now looking back, like after you got honest and after you came out of treatment, like, and I mean, I'd only known you for 6 months before that. But I was like, oh, yeah, this is what his personality's like. Like,
Yeah.
you definitely were way different, back in sobriety. But I think that's one of the things that people in recovery, like, we still have normal lives. Life still throws shit storms at us. And, like, sometimes there are highs and lows in recovery. Like, hopefully they're not as big of, highs and lows as they are when we were drinking and using. But but like PSA, check on your friends, you know, because you never really know, like, oh, like I could have just been thinking like, oh, he had a shit day at work. That might have been what you said, you know, at some point, if somebody asked you about it, like, oh, you know, work kicked my ass today or whatever, like I'm good. I'm just, you know, in one of them moods or something like that. But like we've had friends that relapse and then, you know, don't make it back into the rooms and don't make it back alive. And so I think that's really crucial part of my recovery now is like, and I'm not always great at it, but trying to reach out to other alcoholics, reach out to people I care about, especially if I haven't seen them around, haven't seen them in a meeting recently, like, yo, where the hell's that person at?
Yeah.
'Cause sometimes like that's the thing that person needs, you know, they can be sitting at home, isolating, thinking, you know, they weren't my real friends anyways. Nobody really cared about them. And then all of a sudden you get a text that says, hey man, hadn't seen you in a while. Love you. Hope you're doing okay. Let's get coffee sometimes. Like that one message can give you the hope or the light that like, oh, well, Adam cares about me still, or Sarah cares about me still, or, yeah, I don't know. I think that's a crucial thing to do.
Yeah, it is. And I mean, I would hope that I would notice it more if it was another one of my girlfriends. Love you, Michael, but I didn't notice, you know. But I would hope that if it was, you know, another woman in recovery with me, that I would notice more. But yeah, thank you for being on here and sharing that. That is
absolutely,
you know, it's fresh. It's a year ago, and you've been incredible since. You've definitely come back alive. I'm happy to see that. So what is parenting like for you guys right now? I'm skipping forward because this is pretty big. You have a little.
Yeah.
Rhodes Graham.
Yeah.
Yeah.
that you found out you were pregnant with while Michael was in the relapse.
Right.
Like,
We're
what,
good. Yeah.
what was that like leading up
Hotel.
into
Oh, yeah.
parenting, having a baby?
Right. Yeah. So he went to treatment. It was hard. You know, I remember little things like there was mold in my closet and I had to use the Kills spray, mold spray. And I was like, can I use this right now? I'm pregnant. You know, is this safe? I need Michael. But he was in treatment. You know, like little things like that.
Yeah.
It wasn't like absorbing my all day, every day, but things would come up.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and we could talk on the phone like once a week or something. I had my first doctor's appointment without him, and saw it on the sonogram. And, you know, we made it fun. Like, I called the nurse's station and was like, I have sonogram pictures. Can I email them? And he printed them out up there. And, like, you know, I wish it didn't go that way, but that's just, like, our story.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, his family was supportive. You guys, like, everyone wrapped me up during that time, and took care of me.
What was it like the actual being pregnant part in recovery? Like, were there things that you couldn't do, medicines that you didn't want to take, any stuff like that, just because of, you know, being sober?
No, and I was so worried. Are you asking me if, like, there was, like, so, like, I was so worried. I don't know if this is what you're asking, but I was super worried that I couldn't take, like, my Prozac pregnant, and, you know, that's going to be a real problem.
Yeah. Your mental health medications.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that what you were asking me?
Yeah, I guess so. I just wasn't sure. I mean, like, I know, like, this much about pregnancy, but, like, you know, like, if normally people have pain medication, or if there's, like, other things that go along with it that, like, because you're, you know, in recovery, that you didn't want to risk.
Yeah, so I,
Yeah, how was it pushing it out?
I didn't.
Oh, okay, good.
I tried.
She tried for 12 hours.
I tried for a really long time. Yeah, so I have experience with pain and physical pain and sobriety. A couple years ago, I broke my ankle and had to have surgery, and, you know, the thing with the painkillers. So me and my mom have, like, a system now. We've been there. We were ready, you know, for birth. She comes, she stays with me as long as there are pain pills in the house, and she holds them and dispenses them. And that's what works for us.
Yeah.
You know, I can't say that that's what you need to do. anytime you have serious pain, but that is what has worked for me.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was like, give me the meds. Because birth is painful. My epidural came out. They were tossing me back and forth, trying to like position me weird, and my epidural came out, and I was like,
isn't that like a
Cut me
super
open.
long needle? Like
yeah.
just chilling in your back?
The thing.
It came
detached.
unplugged from my back.
Okay.
Yeah.
And she grabbed me and screamed, and I was asking for pain medicine.
Right.
In that moment in time. For her.
Right. But yeah, I mean, that's how I approached, the pain med situation. It was like talked about and, planned. I didn't just go into it, like I'm a drug addict and I'm about to give birth, we'll see.
Right.
Yeah,
But
I think it's really smart that you had a plan in place for it.
yeah, I had to.
That's something that I've experienced, having to take pain meds in sobriety, which is scary because like opiates and heroin, that was like my
Love
main
painkillers.
main shit.
Yeah.
That was my jam. I like to freaking melt into a sofa.
Yeah.
But I know for me, like you're saying, like telling somebody else about it, who's in sobriety, being upfront and honest about it, not like doing those old addict behaviors that we did. Like, cause if I got back in the day, like if I had a prescription, like I was in my pocket or in my glove box, or like I held it like my baby.
Yeah.
Like I had to have it on.
Yeah.
It was like a safety blanket because
Yeah.
I knew no matter what life threw at me, like I could pop 4 of them bitches and
Right.
be okay with it.
Right.
Yeah. And who knows, I may have been that way if I hadn't gotten my mom to hold my prescription and dispense them. But
Yeah.
I just don't know. I don't want to know. I don't
Yeah.
want to
Yeah.
gamble with it.
Well, it sounds like you both must have been in the center for something as big as a pregnancy to have not rocked you in your sobriety.
Yeah.
Would you say that that's the case?
Yeah, I mean, I was in a really good place. Things were hard with him for sure, but I had like just gone back through the steps and I was taking somebody through the steps and was really involved and active and great spiritual life, pray, meditate every day. So I was in a good place initially.
Yeah.
And I mean, it held for me.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome.
It wasn't like, I had to like build from ground zero.
Right. I've said this to you guys a few times before, but I have been so impressed by how quickly y'all turned your lives around for this kid. Not everyone's going to know this, but you guys went from basically, the hotel situation. You have 3 horses, living in a hole in Madison. And now you have almost a year sober. You're in a new house. You got a new job. You're full-time mom.
Yeah.
Follow her on TikTok. She does her daily life vlogs.
Yeah, drop the TikTok handle.
No.
Yeah.
No.
I mean, y'all
Okay,
are
okay.
full-on parents. And it's really impressive to me, from you, Michael, because everyone says that you can't get sober for anyone. And I do think that's true. I think we could all agree. Like, you can't get sober for your mom, your dad, your kid, for anyone
Yeah,
but
I think
yourself.
you really got to want it to stay sober.
Yeah.
I think it's enough for some people to start sometimes, but like to maintain long-term sobriety, like you got to want it for you.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and how would you make sense of that then? If she showed you that she's pregnant, because it sounds like she showed you she's pregnant, you were in the hospital, and then you just get sober.
In the
Yeah.
hotel.
Is that really how? Hotel. What did
Yeah.
I say?
Hospital.
Hospital.
I was in a hospital the week before, but that's a
Right.
different part of the story.
Different
Yeah.
part.
Shout out St. Dominic's. But yeah, so I learned this from a therapist. This is not philosophy that I came up with, but I do think that this is absolutely, exactly how I got sober. Is it takes outside motivators and inside motivators, and if you don't have both, you can't get sober. Because if you have just inside motivators, but your whole outside world is like get fucked up, then you're probably not going to get sober. And if the whole outside world's telling you to get sober and you don't want to, it's not. So it takes both. And for me, I mean, before the hotel scene, I had spent the past year surrounding myself with recovery. I didn't have any friends anymore that I hung out with regularly that wasn't sober. So I was trying to build that outside motivation. It was the inside I was fighting with a little bit, but I wanted to get sober. But it wasn't enough to have friends or, you know, family want me to get sober. It was having a human being that depends on me 100%, you know, and then having somebody that was, you know, going to really need me in the next 9 months.
Yeah.
Like that was enough for me to say, what do I need to do? Because at that point, you know, you have to separate yourself from the substances. I had to go to treatment.
Yeah.
You know, so it doesn't matter how much inside outside motivation I got, you know, I'm physically addicted to something. So
Yeah, you needed a detox.
yeah. So but that's what it is, you know, and that's still what it is today. You know, I want to live, as I said before. You know, I get when I drink or use or change the way I feel, I get sad. You know, and I don't want to be here anymore. So, and I want to be here. I have more reasons to be here now than I ever have. So that, to me, is the inside and outside motivation at the same time, and that's kind of how it works.
What did that period of time that Madison just described in the pregnancy, like, what was that like for you, you know, coming out of treatment and like, okay, I got a girlfriend, soon-to-be wife who's pregnant, like I got a baby on the way, I don't have a job, I don't have, like, because I mean, I'm not trying to tell your story, but like a lot of that stuff had, you know, kind of fallen away. I remember conversations we had where you're like, dude, what the hell? Like, what am I supposed to do?
Great question.
Yeah. So walk us through that a little bit.
Yeah. So before I went to treatment, I was at a company that I had been contracting or full-time with for 8 years. And that company let me go when I went in, you know, I separated myself. So, or they separated themselves from me. I didn't separate anything. But so I came out with, you know, for the first time in my life before, as I said, you know, I've been trying to get sober for a year. So there was periods of time where I was like, this is my career. This is what I'm going to do the rest of my life.
Yeah.
So, you know, not only was my life about to change with a child and a wife, but I, you know, had a career change in the middle of that. So it was, the funny thing is I almost wanted to say it was hard, but it was really, really easy because, you know, you can't add time up. You know, you don't take the time you had and put it on the time you got now, but you can add what you learned in that experience. And I knew that God had it.
Yeah.
You know, like I knew I had had enough time and been around enough sober people to know that it was going to be okay.
You'd seen what he'd do.
Yeah. So like I said, I wanted to say it was hard, but it was actually like it was comforting, you know, to know that like I will be okay. You know, no matter how hard or how difficult this may be, you know, I will be okay. And the funny thing is well, an old sponsor of mine got me a job with a guy who owns a company who's in recovery for 10 years. So that was my first job out of treatment, was with a guy in recovery. So that was another layer of safety.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't have to
put you right where you needed to be.
Yeah. And so that was perfect. That's what I needed at the time. So, I mean, yeah, it was kind of a step down, really. You know, like it wasn't sober living. I wasn't, you know, inside a facility anymore. But the people I worked with were sober. You know, like that was huge. You know, going to work every day and knowing that there wasn't going to be any kind of temptation there was really what I needed for those first few months out. And then once I, you know, decided to make her a stay-at-home mom, you know, we moved jobs a little bit. So.
Yeah. In recovery, ignorance is not bliss. It's dangerous.
Yeah.
Like to be around too many people that don't understand me is really dangerous for me.
There's a reason that they say, like in treatment centers, that you need to change your people, places, and things.
Yeah.
And that was something that I definitely had to do. Like, I remember getting my my counselor in treatment to like let me have phone privileges so I could go through and delete numbers. And I cleared out like 300 numbers of like, well, I've smoked pot with this person, I tripped with this person sells this, I get drunk with this person.
Yeah.
Basically everybody in my life who like even drank, not even necessarily people that did all the other stuff I was doing. I kind of had to cut them off, and like I made a new Facebook because I didn't want to see all those old
did that
people
too.
and what they were doing. And I think it's really important. Like you see people relapse and go back out by doing that. Like you're trying to live with one foot in both worlds.
Yeah.
And it's like I can either live in this party world where everybody's doing what they're doing, or I can step over here into God's world. And I don't know, for me, like I had to go all in. I kind of took the same approach that I took with drugs and alcohol. Once I started, like you said, I was off to the races. I was all in. And same thing with recovery. And I think that's true for a lot of people. Like when you experience enough pain out there doing what we were doing, for me, like I was willing to do anything. I was willing to do whatever, you know. There was like no more fight left in me.
Yeah. Yeah. So I want to ask you guys a few more questions before we close out.
Cool.
Do you enjoy your lives now, or are you bored?
I enjoy my life.
How?
How?
How do you have fun in recovery and sobriety?
I mean, the same way as before. It's just, I have to take another step to, like when we still do stuff.
Yeah. What do we do, Madison?
We went on this year's Oklahoma trip. Yeah. We just called Mamaw up. We said, hey, we got to get out of the house.
Yeah.
And she came over. She's there right now.
Yeah.
So we're doing this.
Are you enjoying this?
over.
Is this fun in recovery right now?
Absolutely.
Okay,
It's
good.
exhilarating a little bit.
Yeah. I had to took a little bit of coercing, but it worked out.
Right.
Yeah. We had to coerce Michael is what we're
That's
Yeah.
right.
really getting at. Yeah.
That's right.
I scratched and
He
clawed.
really just didn't want to, you know.
Yeah.
You were
That's
so
right.
nervous,
It
but
was
you're
tough.
doing great.
That's
So
right.
sweaty.
So speaking of fun and recovery, I know like you've been to a bunch of music festivals sober.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Probably one of my favorite things to do since I've gotten sober. I never went to a music festival before I got sober.
Really?
I didn't know that.
I had such anxiety. I just knew I would get there and get on drugs and freak out and want to call my mom.
I just never had
Really?
enough money.
Never went. Me neither.
Like Bonnaroo tickets are like $500. Like, bro,
know.
that's
I'm
enough
still
dope for a couple days.
Yeah,
Like,
I'm still wondering how I pull off Bonnaroo tickets today.
Yeah.
But yeah, amazing experience. I've done all kinds of things sober that I was never able to do getting high,
Yeah.
which is that amazes me all the time.
what's that like for you being like around that type of scene in sobriety?
It's fine. I don't have any trouble with it at all. I mean, and we camp with Soberoo. We went, we kind of like the surgery thing. Like we made a plan. We were prepared. We went and we camped with sober people. So we
Yeah.
had a home base to go to, and there were meetings we could go to. We don't really show up, unprepared anymore. Maybe that's the difference.
Yeah. Yeah.
100%. Like,
Yeah.
Go into those things with the plan and
Yeah,
and also like the last one that we were at, I just can't imagine being there in that heat, like messed up and like having not been prepared.
Yeah, you want to talk about not having fun.
Oh yeah. I was hoping we would talk about this, Michael.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
share
Michael,
your
I have a very
experience with that.
famous photo of you in the car getting a pep talk by one of our guy
Sure.
friends.
Yeah, you did not
And
look
your
happy.
eyes are just blazing and you look like you're about.
So we were going to this Bonnaroo
Yeah.
in 22, and I'd already bought tickets, and then I had relapse. But this was during the 3 months of me lying about it. So I went to Bonnaroo, and so camping for 4 days in 100-degree heat, coming off of kratom and alcohol, or no, just kratom at the time. But yeah, so it was a great time.
It was miserable.
It was
so miserable.
It was awful.
Everybody was like, "Why doesn't he like
then-
this?"
No offense, but meanwhile, I was having the best time.
Same.
Like feeling God in the yoga classes.
Yeah.
Yeah, Sarah went and like ran a 5K that morning.
I ran a 5K.
Yeah.
It was amazing.
She almost passed out from heat exhaustion and was like happy about it.
Yeah.
Like, we're out here fighting.
Yeah, but there's a message here. There's a message. We can choose another and go to the yoga instead.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
But it was like the
absolutely.
Okatoma because we just went recently. And so you've had now two very different experiences at the same place with these same people at the same time of year. The only change is you.
Yeah. The funny part is I always thought drinking and doing drugs is like the wild and free thing to do. Like that's freedom is
Right.
to change the way you feel, but that's captivity is doing things under the influence of something, because you have to be under the influence to enjoy it. It's terrible. True. I've realized, you asked the question earlier, what do you do for fun now? Like, everything's fun.
Yes.
Like being sober, like anything I do, going to work is a blast because I know I'm like there, I'm present.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody asks me a simple question, I'm like, wait a second, I can remember the answer to this.
Yeah.
That's, stuff like that's fun.
Yes.
So and then when I go to the Oklahoma like we did this year, I was able to do just a little hump, and then it come right back to my daily life. But it's so much fun.
It's incredible how that happens. Like how before getting sober, like I always felt like I had to have a substance to enjoy the mundane things.
Yeah.
Like I'm going to the DMV, better get high. Like,
Yes.
got to go grocery shopping, better get high. It's time for dinner, better get high. It's time for literally anything. Like
I have to
had
put the
be
sheets
high.
on my bed.
Yeah, like
Wow.
And now I
I got to
love
smoke a
putting the
blunt
sheets
before
in my
this
bed.
blunt,
Yeah.
so that I'll be high for the blunt. Like,
Somebody's coming over to get high. Should get high.
yeah, 100%. But then, like in recovery, I can find enjoyment or peace doing those mundane things. Like I don't love washing the dishes, but like I put my speaker in the kitchen, crank up some songs I like, and all of a sudden I'm like singing at the top of my lungs, dancing around my kitchen, having a good time, doing a task that I didn't want to do.
Yeah.
Right.
And even like at work and stuff too, like sometimes I don't have the best day at work, but then lots of times if I'm spiritually right and if I'm looking for them, I find an opportunity where I can have like a really genuine conversation with somebody and help them out of a situation where they thought that their world was falling.
Yeah.
And I don't do anything that serious. Like I'm in sales, it's not like I'm a therapist or anything, but I found like when I'm centered and when I'm right with God and looking for him, like those opportunities pop up all over the place. And that's the stuff that gets me high nowadays. Like when I get to share some of my story and somebody's like, oh man, I thought I was the only person that did that. Like you get to see the relief in somebody's face or whatever the situation may be. Like, man, that's so much better than actually getting high.
Yeah. And then hopefully our lives do always go up and down. Hopefully we always do have things to be excited about, and things to be sad about are going to happen. But it's not that dramatic anymore.
Yeah, I had a therapist make this analogy or hand gesture to me once before I got sober, way before I got sober. She said, everybody's life has ups and downs, and yours are like this, like way exaggerated.
Right.
She said normal people's lives, ups and downs are like this. Just
Same events, different person.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Something happens to me.
I was like,
that's
a
bad.
bullshit.
Yeah.
Like, you don't know what you're talking about. You don't know me. You don't know my life.
That's right.
And then that's a low point.
Yeah. Yeah. Turns out she's right.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Everybody was right.
It's funny. It just made me think, like, I've been on and off in therapy since I was like 7 years old. Like when my parents got divorced, they threw me in anger management therapy and like all kinds of other stuff. But I never was honest with a therapist until I got sober. And I would always talk about therapy like, oh man, therapy's some bullshit. That doesn't work. What am I going to do? Talk to this old man? Like I remember being a young kid and going to see this older male therapist. And he was like trying to like, get me to open up, make conversation with me. And he asked me something about PlayStation 2. And I remember being like, this idiot doesn't know shit about PlayStation. Like, who does he think I am, this dumbass? Like, I know you old, but get out of here. Like, I was so offended that he wanted to talk to me about PlayStation.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did the same thing. First time I went to therapy, I would sit I was an adult, but I would sit in therapy and cry. And my therapist would just go, maybe you should get sober. I was like, that's not going to help anything.
So sad.
Oh, Michael.
Oh, it was the truth though. But I had the same view of the therapist as I was going for help, but I didn't think that they could help.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Which is an example of like every other relationship in my life at that time. You're not going to help me.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. I feel like
Not
a lot of
smarter.
addicts do that. Like we pay somebody and just sit there and lie to them for an hour.
Right.
Once a week.
It's great.
Yeah.
Time.
Once a week.
Like clockwork.
Yeah.
and like expect some sort of result
Yeah,
out of it.
I'm about to get better.
Like, yeah, I'm taking, I don't know, 20 oxys a day, but that definitely can't be why I'm having sleep problems.
Doesn't
Right.
matter.
Like, I remember getting on sleeping medicine when I was doing shitloads of cocaine and like telling the therapist that I had insomnia, and like I kind of have always had like trouble falling asleep. Not so much anymore, really, but like before getting sober, when I was little, like I was never one of those people that could just lay down and pass out. And so like I used that in the back of my mind, like, well, it can't be the blow because I've always had trouble sleeping.
Right.
Yeah, it was definitely the cocaine.
Yeah, for
100%.
sure.
Yeah.
Well, y'all, this has been amazing.
Oh,
I'm really glad that you both came on.
Yeah.
thank you.
Wasn't so bad, was it, Michael?
It wasn't.
No.
I survived it. I'm so glad I did.
You did so well.
Is there
Thanks.
anything else you guys want to share
Just
before
trying
we
to keep
close
up.
out?
I just want to say I'm really like glad to be on, and I'm really happy for you guys. This is really
Yeah,
exciting.
this is awesome.
Yeah.
Appreciate it, guys.
I listen.
you.
I have a 2-hour commute every day, so I listen to podcasts, and this will be one that I pop in every now and
You
then.
get to listen yourself tomorrow.
Wow,
Wow.
that'll last 5 minutes.
Right. For sure.
Well, thank you guys for being here. Thanks again. And thanks everybody on TikTok, Facebook, Spotify, everywhere you listen to podcasts for tuning in.
Yeah,
Thanks, Danny.
absolutely. If you want to check out the shirts that Sarah and I are wearing, you can snag those at whiskeymilk.com for some undercover recovery gear. And we'll see you guys next week.
Attention, now arriving at your destination. The last house on the block.